Have you ever gone so silent that the people who once ignored you suddenly started paying attention? I'm not talking about the silence of a victim. I'm not talking about the silent treatment used to manipulate or play games. I'm talking about the heavy, tectonic shift that happens when a person who used to pour their soul into someone else finally stops. Not because you yelled, not because you begged, but simply because you stopped showing up to the places where you were unappreciated. Silence is not weakness, it's not surrender, it's not defeat. Silence is a message, it is a mirror, it is a consequence. And sooner or later, the people who took you for granted start to feel it. They feel it in the quiet rooms where your voice used to be. They feel it in the empty space where your kindness used to sit. They feel it loudly. Today, we are going deep. We are exploring the 8 silent behaviors that make people regret hurting you without you having to say a single word. If you've ever felt invisible, taken for granted, or discarded, this is your anthem. This is how you take your power back. Welcome to Improve Your Mindset. Let's begin the transformation. Before we dive into the behaviors, we have to talk about the why. Why does it hurt so much to be ignored by someone you've given everything to? Psychology tells us that being ignored activates the same regions in the brain as physical pain. When you are taken for granted, it isn't just an insult, it's a slow erosion of your spirit. You start to believe that if you just do more, if you just speak louder, if you just explain yourself one more time, they will finally see you. But here is the hard truth. You cannot make someone see your value by giving them more of what they already do and appreciate. The moment you realize this, the game changes. You stop fighting for a seat at a table where you aren't being fed. You stop being the person who holds the rope while the other person lets go. Let's look at the first shift in your behavior that changes everything. There is a specific kind of power that comes from a silent observation. When someone hurts you, their first instinct is to wait for your reaction. They expect the fire. They expect the clap back. They expect you to defend your name, to correct their version of the story, or to scream into the void about how unfair they are being. When you react, you give them data. You give them a roadmap of your triggers. You give them the satisfaction of knowing they still have the remote control to your emotions. But when you just watch, that is terrifying. Imagine a person who has been lied to. Instead of crying, instead of accusing, they simply look the liar in the eye, nod slowly, and walk away. That silence is a vacuum. It forces the other person to sit with their own guilt. The story of the mirror. Think of a woman named Sarah. She worked at a firm where her boss constantly took credit for her ideas. For years, she complained. She sent emails. She argued. And for years, the boss ignored her because her noise made her look emotional. One day, Sarah stopped. She sat in the meetings. She watched him take her credit. She didn't say a word. She just smiled, took her notes, and began documenting everything for her exit. The boss became frantic. He started asking, "Are you okay? Is something wrong?" He realized that her silence meant she was no longer under his thumb. Your lack of reaction is louder than anger. Not replying is a reply. Not reacting is a reaction. This is emotional power. It's not about revenge. It's about clarity. You are finally seeing them for who they are, and you are no longer interested in trying to change the view. How many hours have you spent rehearsing arguments in your head? How many times have you typed out a long paragraph explaining your feelings, only to delete it or worse, send it and get a one-word reply? At some point, you realize a fundamental law of human nature. If someone cared, you wouldn't have to beg. If someone respected you, you wouldn't have to repeat yourself. Argument is a form of investment. When you argue with someone, you are saying, "I still believe this relationship is worth the friction." You are still trying to build a bridge. But when you stop, that's when the bridge collapses. Detachment is a language toxic people cannot speak. They thrive on the push and pull. They want the drama because drama feels like importance. When you disconnect, when you stop explaining why you're hurt, when you stop overworking for a connection, you are effectively removing the oxygen from their fire. They will try to bait you. They will poke at old wounds. They will say things they know will hurt just to see if the old you is still there. But the new you knows that your energy is a currency. Why would you spend it on someone who has a zero balance account in your life? When you detach, they finally feel the silence they created. You didn't create the distance, they did. You're just finally agreeing to it. There's a difference between leaving and choosing distance. Leaving can be loud. Leaving can be a scene, but choosing distance, that is a soul-level decision. You don't slam doors, you quietly walk out. You don't block them for attention, you block them for peace. Many people use blocking or ghosting as a way to get a reaction. They want the other person to notice and come crawling back. But the behavior that causes true regret is when you disappear to protect your own peace, not to punish them. The regret happens when they realize they no longer have access. Think about the people who took you for granted. They viewed your presence as a right, not a privilege. They assumed you would always be a text away, always a phone call away, always ready to forgive. Distance becomes your answer. You stop giving them your presence like it's a reward they didn't earn. Silence plus distance equals clarity. From a distance, you can see the relationship for what it really was, not what you hoped it would be. And from a distance, they can finally see the hole you left behind. This is perhaps the most difficult behavior to master, but it is the most powerful. When someone treats you poorly, they often create a narrative in their head where you are the problem. They need you to be the crazy one. They need you to be the bitter one. If you explode, they can point their finger and say, "See, that's why I treated them that way." Your reaction justifies their mistreatment. But what happens when you stay kind? What happens when you remain centered, polite, but firm? Your kindness becomes a mirror. Without your chaos to distract them, they are forced to look at their own reflection. Their guilt finally sees itself. Kindness isn't weakness. It's the ultimate form of control. It's emotional maturity. It's choosing dignity over reaction. Your grace becomes the lesson they never expected to learn from losing you. They realize they didn't just lose a partner or a friend. They lost a high-value human being who was capable of staying steady even when the world was shaking. When they look back on how they treated you versus how you handled the exit, the weight of their regret will be unbearable. Take a breath. If you are watching this right now and your heart is beating a little faster, it's because you recognize yourself in these words. You've been the one holding it all together. You've been the one begging for crumbs of affection. I want you to know, it is okay to stop. It is okay to be tired. You are not giving up on them. You are finally showing up for yourself. Before we move to the final four behaviors, which are the most transformative, I want to ask you a question. Who would you be if you were constantly trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed? Hold that thought. Let's look at behavior number 5. There is an old saying, before you embark on a journey of revenge, dig 2 graves. Revenge is a trap. It keeps you tethered to the person who hurt you. It keeps your energy focused on their life instead of your own. When you seek revenge, you are still playing their game. The behavior that causes the deepest regret is when you stop caring about justice. You don't chase closure, you realize that their behavior was the closure. You don't beg for accountability, you trust that life, or karma, or the universe handles it. People eventually drown in the same chaos they created for others. It's not spite. It's not cruelty. It's the law of sowing and reaping. If someone is a person who takes people for granted, they will eventually take the wrong person for granted and lose everything. And your silence, that's the tracking number. You don't need to watch the delivery. You don't need to be there when the bill comes due. You just trust the timing of your life. When they see that you are no longer interested in getting even, they realize you have moved to a level they can't reach. You have ascended. There is nothing more haunting than realizing the person you hurt has completely forgotten to hate you. Once upon a time, you cared too much. You were the fixer. You apologized first even when you did nothing wrong. You carried conversations on your back. You held relationships together with sheer willpower. This is the people pleaser's prison, And the bars are made of your own fear of being disliked. The moment you prioritize your peace over their approval, manipulation stops working. You become unmanipulatable. Think about it. A manipulator relies on your need for their validation. If you stop needing them to like you, what power do they have? None. When you stop pleasing and start piecing, you start saying no without an explanation. You start setting boundaries that are non-negotiable. People who hurt you expect you to eventually come back and apologize for their mistakes just to keep the peace. When you stay in your peaceful silence, they realize the power dynamic has shifted forever. They can't control someone who no longer fears losing them. We live in an era of oversharing. We post our meals, our heartbreaks, and our vague posts about who did us wrong. When you are hurt, the temptation is to post thirst traps or quotes about fake friends to show them how well you redoing. But everyone knows that proving you re-happy is the loudest way of showing you re-miserable. True power is becoming a mystery. You stop posting updates. You stop giving access to your inner world. You stop the digital breadcrumbing. Mystery creates regret because it leaves the other person with their own imagination. Are they happier without me? Did they meet someone else? Do they even remember my name? Your silence becomes the chapter they don't get to read. When you become a mystery, you regain your value. You are no longer an open book they can flip through whenever they're bored. You are a masterpiece locked in a private gallery, and they lost their key. This is the final level. This is where healing becomes power. You start to evolve quietly, new goals, new boundaries, new confidence, a new version of you. But here's the key. You don't do it to prove anything to them. You don't do it to win the breakup or the falling out. You do it because you finally remembered who you were before they made you forget. You're not hiding. You're growing in the dark, like a seed. You're not avoiding. You're leveling up. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, that makes someone regret losing you faster than seeing you become the person they always said you couldn't be. Imagine them scrolling or hearing through the grapevine that you are thriving. Not just okay, but thriving. You've gained the confidence you lost. You've achieved the dream they laughed at. And you did it all without ever sending them a text to say, I told you so. Your success is the loudest noise you will ever make. And the best part, by the time they realize what they lost, you lines be so far ahead that you won't even be looking back to see their regret. We have covered 8 behaviors, but they all boil down to one central truth. Your energy is your life. When you give your energy to people who hurt you, you are essentially paying them to keep hurting you. Your silence is the act of taking your money back. But I want to be clear about something. This is not about being cold. This is not about being heartless. It is about being heart-protected. There is a spiritual concept called the void. When you remove a toxic presence from your life and you don't immediately fill it with noise, drama, or a new person, you create a vacuum. Most people are terrified of this vacuum. They run back to their exes, or they start drama just to feel something. But if you can sit in that silence, if you can lean into that void, something miraculous happens. You start to hear your own voice again. You start to hear your own intuition. You start to realize that the hole in your life wasn't a hole at all. It was a space for something better to grow. Improve your mindset isn't just a channel name, it's a lifestyle. It's the realization that your external world is a reflection of your internal boundaries. If you allow people to take you for granted, the world will follow suit. But if you stand in your silence and your self-worth, the world has no choice but to respect you. Silence isn't running away. Silence isn't surrender. Silence isn't pretending you don't care. Silence is choosing yourself. Silence is healing. Silence is peace. When you walk away quietly, regret walks in loudly. Because people never regret losing you when you're begging. They regret losing you when you finally stop trying. The next time you feel the urge to explain yourself to someone who isn't listening, stop. The next time you want to scream at the unfairness of it all, breathe. The next time you want to show them what they're missing, just be what they're missing. Stay calm, stay private, stay gone. Your silence is not empty. It is full of answers. If this spoke to something deep inside you today, if you felt a shift in your perspective, do me a favor. Drop the one line from this video that hit you the hardest in the comments below. Let's start a conversation of healing. And if you're ready to stop being taken for granted and start building the strongest version of yourself, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Here, we don't just talk about mindset, we master it. Thank you for watching. Remember, your silence is your power. Use it wisely. This is Improve Your Mindset. We'll see you in the next one.